Hello and welcome. My name is Light and this is my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about some photos, the last photos of some people that were taken before a tragedy happened. Before we get started, if you would please give this video a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, please do so. Please leave comments. All of these help my channel to be seen and for you to be notified when my content goes up. All right, below in the description of this video, I'm going to put the address to my new Etsy store. All holiday paintings are gone. So what's left is my paintings. You know, my imagination. All right, let's get started. Take them a lot now, right? I personally have 15,000 photos on my phone. We take them for happy times, special occasions. We take them in sad times. It covers a range of emotions, that split second in time. Today we're going to talk about some photos that were captured a split second in time before disaster struck. You never know when something like that is going to happen. So to see people who are, happy or whatever the emotion is, split second before a tragedy, I don't know, that's something that's always fascinated me. Not the pictures, not the photos of something before a tragedy, but the idea that there's a clock that's counting down and you don't know it. So maybe you're Irina Glazunova, who was 24 years old. She was being filmed happily singing and dancing down a street. You'll see the happy girl. And then right after that, she tripped over a wall and she fell several feet down. She was rushed to the hospital, but she later died from her injuries. Known as the Indian Houdini. This photo shows the moment that the Indian Houdini was lowered into a river. Magician Chanchal Lahari was 40 years old, and he was attempting to perform the daredevil stunt in the Hooghly River in Kolkata in June of 2019. He was lowered into the water by a winch. He was wearing a yellow and red costume, and his legs and arms were tightly bound by chains. To the horror of onlookers, including his own family, the 40-year-old failed to emerge from the water. His body was later found by the police following a very frantic search. He had drowned trying to do that stunt. Lahiri said before the daredevil stunt that he had successfully pulled off a very similar feat 21 years earlier at the same venue in Kolkata. He's quoted as saying, "I was inside a bulletproof glass box, tied with chains and locks, and dropped down from the Howrah Bridge. Then I came out within 29 seconds. He admitted that this one was going to be tough to free himself this time. He said, if I can open it up, then it will be magic. But if I can't, it'll be tragic." And it was. This photo is the final photo taken of the crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger that crashed during takeoff on January 28th, 1986. Leading the crew is Commander Francis Richard Scobie, followed by Judith Resnick, Ronald McNair, Michael Smith, the teacher that was going along for the ride, Krista McAuliffe, and Ellison Onizuka. Engineer Gregory Jarvis was also on board. And as some of us know and lived through that moment, many of us in our classrooms, TVs were rolled in. We could see this event because there was a teacher going into space. And we sat there and watched them die. 73 seconds after its launch, the spacecraft exploded over the Atlantic Ocean and killed all 7 astronauts. Millions of people had gathered to watch this launch, which included the crew's families, and they watched in horror as the Challenger was engulfed in a ball of orange and white flames. I'll never forget it. Someone was heard saying, "The effing thing blew up." The accident was later blamed on a faulty seal in one of the shuttle's rockets, which compromised the fuel tanks. A distraught President Ronald Reagan canceled his annual State of the Union address and from the Oval Office told the nation the crew of the Challenger honored by the manner in which they lived their lives. We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them. This morning, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God. Next, this photo was taken of the passengers on board Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 just moments before it crashed in the Andes. The plane was carrying an amateur football team from Montevideo, Uruguay, to Santiago, Chile, when it went down. A lot of us have seen movies, and I think there was even a movie on Netflix last year about this. 33 out of 45 passengers and crew survived the initial impact, but the number was soon reduced to 16 people, as the others had succumbed to the elements. And when the official search was called off, after 10 days, the remaining passengers were forced to turn to cannibalism to survive. The dead bodies were preserved by the cold, allowing them to provide sustenance for the survivors for up to 72 days. 2 of the survivors eventually gained enough strength to ask to go if they could seek help. They did, and they got the rest of the people rescued. The event became known as the Miracle of the Andes, and it has inspired a documentary and the Hollywood film Alive. This is a photo that a student took of a black bear. He was with a group of people. Darsh Patel was 22 years old. He was out hiking in the Apshawa Preserve in West Milford, New Jersey. The image shows the bear approaching a fallen tree just a bit away from the group. They stopped and they took photographs of the bear with their cell phones, and the bear began walking towards them. The friends then split up, but unfortunately for Patel, he was followed by the bear. Police found this animal standing over the 22-year-old's body before they shot it dead. Officers then recovered this photograph from his phone, which appeared to have been bitten by the bear. As a side note, I don't think that wild animals should be shot and killed for doing what wild animals do when people F around and find out. You might not agree. Moving on. This photo shows James Dean putting gas in his car just hours before the crash that would lead to his death. He was 24 years old and he was traveling to a car rally in Salinas, California, when he collided with a turning car at a high speed on September 30th, 1955. Dean's passenger, a mechanic and pilot, was ejected from the Porsche 550 Spider, but he survived the crash. The actor, however, was trapped inside the car and sustained a number of fatal injuries, including a broken neck. He was pronounced dead shortly after he arrived at the hospital. Dean loved cars, and his nickname for his Porsche 550 Spider was Little Bastard. You know, James Dean was only in 3 movies. I've watched them all. But it seems now like he was a bigger than life person. Feels as though he was super famous and did a lot of movies. But he shot into fame very quickly with his 3 movies. This image shows the very final moments before a lawyer was swept to her death in front of her children when she jumped into an ice hole in Russia. She was the mother of 2. Her name was Anna Yuskova. She was 40 years old. She went in feet first into the Ordez River. The purpose was to mark the Orthodox Epiphany in January of 2022. Her 2 young children were screaming as she was pulled away by the powerful current. The lawyer was from St. Petersburg and was participating in a tradition followed annually by hundreds of thousands of Russians, and they believe that to mark the Day of Epiphany, that they do this because they believe that the water is blessed for the annual ceremony and it possesses special healing properties. A hole had been cut into the thick ice, and the air temperature was around -5 Celsius when Anna jumped in. She was wearing a black one-piece swimsuit and was seen crossing herself before she held her nose and hopped into the river. This photograph was taken of Air France Flight 4590, and it was just moments before it went down, almost immediately after takeoff. There were 109 passengers and crew and 4 others on the ground who died when the Concorde plane crashed into a suburb of Paris on July 25, 2000. The plane took off from Charles de Gaulle Airport at about 4:43 p.m. and was headed towards New York City. However, as it sped down the runway, a fire started just under the left wing, and by the time it left the ground, one of the 2 engines on the left side had failed. The pilot only managed to climb about 200 feet into the air before the other left-hand engine cut out and the plane literally dropped out of the sky. The Air France flight smashed into a small hotel and restaurant in the suburb. An investigation found this is so crazy. It found that the Concorde had hit a metal strip that was on the runway during its takeoff, and that caused a tire to burst. Then a piece of rubber got stuck to the fuel tank, which in turn caused the fire and the failure of the engines. The horror of this crash is thought to have been the reason that they hastened the end of the use of the Concorde aircraft in 2003. Something so minor, so minuscule, so much damage. Thank you for coming to my channel, and good night.